What is up there, everybody? Citrus Aviation here with yet another video, and this is the January 2022 model aircraft news. And as per usual, we bring on a special guest on every episode, and I would like to welcome yesterday's airlines to the show.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, certainly. I like bringing on a wide variety of voices and interest in the community, and so I don't think I've ever brought you on for one of these shows. We did an interview like a year ago, and I thought it'd be great to bring you on again. So here we go for the show today. And the model aircraft industry has a ton of stuff going on right now. We are going to be heading into a period where it's going to slow down a little bit as the Chinese New Year occurs. But towards the end of the year, there does tend to be a lot of interesting things happening, and this is no exception. We're going to talk about the NG Models Collectors Reward Program. Here's the first item. It looks like they are actually going to implement it. As per usual, they are a little bit vague on exactly how it's going to work, but it looks like you will actually be able to trade in points that you get from the cards and turn them into model aircraft. And it seems to be a decent program. Again, not exactly sure about the specifics of like how many points it takes to get like a 787 or hopefully an MD-80. Please make an MD-80 this year, Angie. We would really like it. Or whatever model or whatever scale they're going to use. We're not exactly sure about the specifics of that, but it looks like they are finally going to implement it. And that's something that I'm really excited about.
But basically, it looks like the way it's going to work from that diagram is that you get your point. You obviously put in your cards and you get your points at their site, which I imagine most people have been doing anyway. And then once you get a certain number of points, and like I said, I don't think it's specified quite how many, then you can shop on their site, I believe, for a model that you might want. And then you get some kind of code, as I understand it. And then you provide that code to your retailer. The model's then shipped out to the retailer, and then that's how it gets to you, basically. That seemed to be kind of the gist of it, though I think it was a little more complicated. They've been getting a bit of stick, I think, for not getting this working sooner, but it's quite complicated for them to deal with, probably why it's taken so long to organise. But it does certainly seem, like you say, that towards the end of the period, and it probably needs a bit of testing, they're definitely moving forward with it. So I think it's definitely going to be something that people want to engage with. So I'd strongly suggest that people, if they've got cards from models that they've got and they haven't entered them into the NG site, then I would do that, because it does look like it will be happening in the nearest future.
It is complicated, which I can understand why maybe it took a while to do. No one else does this in the hobby at all.
That's right.
Like, it's completely new. It sort of reminds me a lot of, for those who have premium airline credit cards, it seems to work somewhat in a similar system.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've got nothing to lose. That's my view on this. I mean, even if it doesn't turn into anything, even if it wasn't going to turn into anything, I mean, you haven't lost anything. I mean, you've been getting the models anyway. You've been getting the cards with the models for free. So why not try it? I mean, the worst that can happen is that you don't get the free model, but the best thing is you can get free models. So you're not going to lose anything from it, I think. And like you say, nobody else has ever done this, or at least not done it in this kind of way. I know there's been a few clubs in the past. I think JetX had a club for a while. I think even Gemini may have done it at one point, but that was years and years ago, and nothing quite like this. I think this is quite unusual, and I think it's another aspect of NG being a good company, a company that wants to engage with people and wants to, be part of the community. So, yeah, I personally, don't feel that I've got anything to lose by engaging with it. NG have been honest about it today, and everything else, to be honest, they've never lied to me. So I feel pretty good about it, and I think hopefully it'll be a good way for people to get, more. Especially considering the cost of models obviously been going up. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, 100% agreed. NG is a great company, even though I have suspicions about China as a country. In terms of NG Models as a company, they seem to be doing a great job and are, in my opinion, the best brand in the industry right now. There's no stand hole. NG, put a stand hole in your bloody 737s. I'll be so much happier.
Yeah, well, you won't like the Max has not got a stand hole either. So.
Oh, my disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But who puts 737s on a stand? I understand where you're coming from. It'd be nice to have the hole, but I have to say, surely you only put wide bodies on stands because you only do that because they haven't got enough room to put them elsewhere.
I guess that's fair enough. Fair enough. Honestly, I don't really put models on stands that much, except for the 200 scales. Those
I
I
did
do
see.
put
I
on.
remember I did see someone on Facebook getting so angry with NG for not having a stand over on their 737. And as someone pointed out, it's like, well, go away and buy the alternative then if you really are that upset by it, because all the alternative 737s are substantially inferior, except for the Panda one. But if you're looking at the JC 737, for example, that's not a great aircraft, not the next generation version anyway. So, I mean,
And for whatever reason, the printing on the Panda Models is inferior because they can't put the window placement in the correct location.
Yeah, they do struggle a little bit with the window height, don't they, on their 737s? But their mold's good.
Yeah, the mold's really solid. In fact, I think they probably have the best scimitar inlets out there. Which brings us on to molds. There's a exciting new pale mold coming out from NG. They like releasing these multiple molds at once, and they've done it again. They have released the 737 MAX, and with this, they basically killed Gemini Jets in terms of viability for narrow body model aircraft, because what's there to buy now?
It's a little harsh. I do think that, as I said earlier, I think that the Gemini Max is good, but I know what you're saying. Broadly, the NG Max is looking excellent. I've got it literally sitting here in front of me. I don't know if you want to have the video on for this, but there it is.
Ooh,
that's
nice.
the Max 9. It is a really nice mold. I've done the review at my site. There's going to be a video posted probably today, actually, or today being 20th December when we're recording this video. So by the time this video goes out, that will have been up on my YouTube channel for a while. It's a really good mold. They're really strong. I personally don't really see any major issues with them, except that I think the nose gear is too short. Hopefully they can resolve that. It still looks a bit NG, as in next generation like, rather than Max at the nose gear, but everything else looks wonderful. So I think they're going to be very strong competitors.
Good. So what you're saying they should do is they should just put on the old 737-800 gear. That was too tall.
Well, the thing is that I think it's 737 it's not just NG who've had an issue here, because Phoenix can't fit a 737 nose gear to save their life. But
what cockpit windows?
I think it's that it's been a fit issue. I don't think it's necessarily a problem with the mold itself, and sometimes, especially recently, their gears have got shorter and better fitted. But sometimes, they're not fitted as well. So I think that half the time it's a fit issue. Certainly, they have changed the nose gear on their NG molds to make the gear shorter and more accurate, I guess. But sometimes I think it's just QC.
Yeah, so like particularly early on with a model release, there can be issues with fitment. Maybe there's like a small issue with the mold machine where it makes just a little bit of extra metal, so that just it's like a millimeter or two off, and so those are things that get fixed over time with manufacturing.
But at the end of the day, these will be put together by poor Chinese workers getting paid. Who knows what they're getting paid, and I shouldn't think the working conditions are spectacular either in a lot of these factories. So and that's not across the board in China. So you kind of have to accept where the model's coming from. I know that people get very frustrated with it, but fundamentally, unless you want to pay twice as much as you're paying now, then it's just the nature of the world economy, really.
Yeah, it just always the reality of the situation. But the Max mold, I read through your article on the website, and of course, I'll be overlaying your video that you're putting out. And it looks to be really good. And one of the things that I really like about NG, just like some of the attention to smaller details, like the seam line between the cabin and the cargo bin, which is there on the real aircraft, which NG is one of the first manufacturers to put that detail in. I think the old Gemini Jets DC9/717 mold has that, but not too many molds for NG had that feature. It's really nice to see NG put down all their Boeing aircraft, and it's really nice. Just like little attention to detail like that really is what makes a top tier model separate and special from a regular model. So that's why I'm really excited for them, and I'm interested to see what they do. So they'll probably do a much larger variety than Gemini Jets will.
But you never know. I agree, though, that they almost certainly will make a wider variety than Gemini, but that's not surprising because they're making 25 models a month as opposed to 10 that making 2.5 times as many models as Gemini do.
I just recently saw some of the first of the Gemini Jets JC Wings interactive 777s come in to collectors.
The cargo ones,
Yeah, they look actually really nice, and they made a couple of improvements on the interactive mold, which I already thought the interactive mold on the 747-400 was pretty good. I liked my Atlas Air one, I thought the Dash 8s had a few issues that they started fixing with the 400s, but this new 777 looks even better. So it actually has something that's actually, as far as I can tell, helps the little pieces to stay in place, which is kind of one of the biggest issues people had, is they actually model the hinges on these aircraft now.
Oh yeah,
And that
okay, that's
sort of
cool.
pegs in to a slot inside the model, which helps the stick better, as far as I can tell. I am going to pick up the FedEx one to see how it is, but it looks like an improvement. And of course, it adds that detail because those hydraulic slant electric hinges on those aircraft are massive. They're huge. It's one of those things where once you've been next to an aircraft like that, like in person on the ground level, you realize just how massive these airliners are. Like when we're watching from like the terminal or plane spotting, we don't get a real good sense of how massive these aircraft are because they're so far away from us. But when if you ever have the opportunity, anyone who's watching this video or whatnot, I recommend that if you ever get the chance to go on the ramp with airport operations, some airports will allow you to do it, some won't. It just sort of depends. Ask if you can go over to the cargo section and just stand next to one of their wide body aircraft. It'll blow your mind how massive they actually are.
Yeah, I recently did I was at Frankfurt recently, and if you're at Frankfurt, you can actually do airport tours, and you're in a bus, but you're effectively at ramp level. Yeah, and they drove up past the cargo ramp, and there were a couple of Lufthansa cargo 777 freighters on the ramp then.
It's just majestic how big these planes are when you see them in person, and so I think it just adds to that perspective. But the 777F from Gemini Jets JC Wings looks to be really nice. It does not have the opening L1 door, unfortunately, in 400 scale. 200 scale one does, but this 400 scale one looks to be a nice improvement of their mold. So I definitely welcome more of these. I think they look pretty neat. They add like an extra interest to the hobby, and just a little something extra special.
Yeah, I like the interactive models as well. I know some people, there's always someone you get upset, but some people complain about, that when the doors are closed, you can see the line and things. But I mean, who's buying an interactive model to show with the doors closed? So I always think that's an extra that you could even they even bother with the doors closed version part of it, because if you're buying an interactive model and you haven't got the nose up on 747s, then that just seems silly. So I really like them as well, and I saw the 777 model come out. They just haven't made one which fits my collection criteria yet, though. I think JC have got one announced which is a Chinese one. It'll probably be about a year before it turns up on menu.
I actually think the most interesting aviation market is India. I actually think that has the biggest potential in the upcoming decades, which is always so. The 2010s was really interesting for the Indian aviation market, and I think that'll continue to be the case.
Yeah, it's heavily underrepresented in scale, I agree. There are these big growing markets, India, Indonesia is another one.
Yeah,
there's a lot of airlines, a lot of color, a lot of new carriers. And they're quite underrepresented in 400 scale. I mean, and that's one thing I think. I mean, I collect a pretty broad range of models, mostly classics, but not entirely classics. And obviously, probably a lot of your viewers, Citrus, are American, but there's a huge market out there, and those are the growing markets. And increasingly, manufacturers in 400 scale are going to be focusing, I think, on those markets where you've got really large populations and very young populations that are going to be buying more models, and at the same time you've got growing, a lot more liveries, a lot more airlines, where mature markets like Europe and the States, obviously you've got very famous carriers, but at the same time relatively small numbers of schemes and aircraft.
That brings us on to releases. First, we're going to talk about the NG December 2022 releases. These releases were so boring, genuinely, that it was more entertaining to make a video memeing the releases than actually make a release video. But the whole point why I actually made that video was the day the releases came out, I wasn't able to release a video due to work, and then had to go to work the following day. I just didn't have time to do it. So the following evening, I was like, I need to make a release video, but I want to do something that's different than what everyone else did. And I kept the idea of just posting pictures and posting a meme. So that's where that video came from, and a lot of people seem to really enjoy it because it's just a fun little way to look at it. Because honestly, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you in terms of the models. To be honest, NG's releases have been not especially exciting for quite a few months now. They're doing a lot of what everyone else is doing, and I think this is partly because NG are trying to compete head to head with Phoenix and Gemini, especially, but JC too. And so they're releasing whenever there's a new livery aircraft combination, it will be released basically. So you're getting the same aircraft from 3 or 4 brands within a couple of months of each other. And I can't see that continuing indefinitely because something's got to give at some point. Basically, you've got exactly the same number of models being made by Phoenix and JC and Gemini, and then you've got NG coming in, producing another big chunk. I'd be surprised if the market was there. So I think something will probably give, and I think NG have basically kind of muscled somebody out of the marketplace. So that kind of accounts for some of those releases. But otherwise, I tend to agree. NG also, like you mentioned earlier, are doing variants of the same aircraft, kind of like JC do. So one month you'll get a couple, and the next month you'll get another couple, very similar. Like, for example, I think this month, didn't they release, like they said, United Star Alliance 777. What the difference between that one and the previous one is the United logo and the engine color. It's not a big change. Obviously, you've got way too many Qatar 777s. And there's another Korean 737 as well. For example, this one's got a special scheme. The previous one was standard colors, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it isn't that exciting. I mean, from my perspective, obviously, there's a huge lack of classics as well, or what even classics that people of your age might consider to be classics from pre-2010. It's all very recent, and that does limit my interest in a lot of the models. Even when there are classics like the TriStar from Royal Jordanian or Alaya, then it's effectively a re-release. It's not quite, there's a kind of titles are a different color, but how many Jordanian TriStars can one person own? Yeah, it was a disappointing month. I agree. It wasn't particularly exciting. The models I'm sure will turn out lovely. They almost always do. They don't generally produce poor models, but at the same time, they're not really doing it for me or for by the sound of it for you either, Citrus, in terms of that month's releases, certainly. But I'd say that the 2 or 3 months before were also not exactly exciting me too much either.
Yeah. If you want to hop on board the collecting Southwest Airlines models, now's a great time to do it. They made Eleanor 1, which is another.
I am tempted. I have been tempted. I do have a reasonable number of Southwest aircraft. I've probably got, I don't know, 10 or 12, but my cutoff is around turn of the century, yeah?
So yeah, fair enough, around 2000. These are all like mostly 2010s, now 2020 era liveries.
What's quite handy for NG is obviously that Southwest do all these special schemes, and quite often they've traveled through the different liveries, so they can do a canyon blue version, and now they can do a harp tail version, and it just changes the tail, really. I do have a reasonable number of canyon blues at the Southwest, actually, which again, it shows, it's very hard to stick to your collecting criteria because those are skipping across the decade. But yeah, I can't stretch to these hot ones. But they look lovely. They look like they'll be delightful models. Complain about those. I think those are really nice releases.
I will say this, the one thing is, as boring as these releases are, I've always loved how they do pairings of models. To where, if these are models you really want, you want to get both of them because they make the special box art that stretches across both models. And it's just something special that only NG does, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's a nice touch, I agree.
And that brings us on to InFlight. Now, of course, you probably don't follow InFlight too much.
Not dramatically,
I'm going to pick up my first InFlight. It's in this release. It is the United States Air Force VC-25A. This is a re-release. I think they've made this now like 2 or 3 times. And the reason is it's just simply too profitable to not make them again because everyone wants a 200 scale Air Force One. It even costs like $250. For me, I am getting, I believe 2800 is the one I'm getting because I've seen it twice. Once when I saw President Trump come in for a rally they did at my local city. And then the second time was with President Biden on board, the same aircraft. And he came in for a speech they did. Because I used to live in Iowa, and Iowa is a very important state politically in the United States. So the President of the United States comes in fairly regularly, at least once a year to Iowa, usually more than that. And so I've seen the gorgeous airplane several times. And this is one of those ones where the overly polished, overly clean nature of model aircraft makes sense. Because for those of you who've seen the real 2800 or even just pictures of it, you see just how like perfectly shiny it's always kept up. And it's just like the exact condition that model airplanes are made in, and that's the condition that this actual aircraft is stored in. The InFlight200 ones also come with a collector coin. They're very limited editions. The thing that makes InFlight so special is their models are 200 scale model that's really, really beautiful. And they make their models extra special in some way. A lot of them are real limited. Like I've seen releases where they made less than 40 of a specific model. So if that's what you want, you've got like one of the rarest planes that anyone has. And the more interesting one I thought in this release, because they make a ton. They make literally any and every model airplane you could think of that's a decently sized airliner, they've made, or they will make it, both retro and modern. The most interesting though one is they made a 400 scale A380 for $100. I don't know why, but they made a British Airways A380 for $100 US. I don't know if it's worth that, but they did make it, which I didn't even know they made InFlight200, but apparently they do.
Is this one of the odd ones that's got an odd part number?
I think so. It's one of the
brands. So it's Aviation 400. It's not InFlight as such, but they're made in the same factory.
Okay, so it's an Aviation 400 one that is branded as an InFlight 400.
Yeah, that's what it will be. Because Aviation 400 have been making a few models that are semi-exclusive for Aviation Retail Direct in the UK. They made a couple of 777s. They've made an A350 1000, and yeah, they've made an A380. And I'm sure that's the model. I think I saw it on a US site not long ago.
On their site.
Yeah, and the part number starts ARD, and then it goes on. But yeah, it'll be the new Aviation 400 model with the detachable landing gear, which should be out pretty much soon. In fact, I think I'll be receiving a model for review quite soon.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I've seen some photos on Facebook and things, so the models are effectively ready. They should be shipping out. They've got quite a backlog.
Well, before we go, if you want to just let people know what makes yesterday's airline special, why don't you go check out your YouTube channel and website?
So yeah, yesterday's airline is obviously my site and become my brand now. I've been going for a long time, since about 2014. Basically, my site and my channels, which are both Instagram and YouTube, support the website and Facebook too. The site is really everything 400 scale. If you want to know about anything in 400 scale, be that classic aircraft, be that modern aircraft, then it's going to be found at my website. I've got detailed mold reviews that go through the history of the molds for pretty much every major type and lots of not major types. Now I've got detailed mold scorings, comparing molds together. I do weekly reviews of actual models, and one of the best things is that I've got a really good connection with quite a few of the manufacturers, especially NG models, but Aviation 400, JC Wings, Fantasy Wings, Panda sometimes, pretty much everyone except Gemini and nowadays Aero Classics. And so I get to a lot of models, samples, and news that other people don't get. And so the site is a really good repository for news about what's coming up in 400 scale, what's going on. So really, I post pretty regular. I post almost daily some kind of story, be it a review, be it a fleet video from my collection. You see a portion of that behind me if Citrus keeps my image in the screens. And check it out. Have a look at yesterdaysairlines.com, but also check out the Instagram and the Facebook and YouTube. And there's bound to be something on there that you'll find interesting if you care about aviation history or 400 scale model airliners.
Yeah, my favorite parts of your website, I suspect it's your most popular content, are the exclusive mold reviews. I'm sorry, a lot of people are interested in those. I also found your Sabak 600 scale coverage that was quite interesting. I read through all those articles.
Yeah, Shabaks. Yeah, that's where I started out in Shabak. So I've still got like 1,700 Shabak models buried away. I can't get them all out, unfortunately, because there's just too many. But yeah, Shabaks, I used to love those when I was a kid. You know, back in the 1980s, that was before anyone was tempo printing anything. Shabak was it. That was about all there was in die-cast aircraft. And then it's still great little collectibles, even today. So yeah, I've been trying to do more in that area. It's kind of a labor of love, but I just haven't had the time.
Yeah, that's understandable. But yeah, that's basically it for this episode. Again, I want to thank Yesterday's Airlines for coming onto the show and for being part of this series. I like to bring on all sorts of people from around the industry. And so, yeah, I'm glad to have him on the show. And with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day. God bless. Peace.